Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Web Programming OUA for Study Period 2. My name's Trevor, and I'll be your instructor for this period. And there is a short delay, so when you ask a question, it will probably take me about 20 seconds to get the answer to you. So the chat is pretty much live, but obviously the delay between you seeing the image will be about 20 seconds. So if you haven't done so already, I've got the chat window here. That should be next to your next to the broadcast. And I suppose my first question is, who has had a chance to look at lecture 0? Samuel, no boat. No, the Wi-Fi is not too good out on Port Phillip Bay, unfortunately. And whilst I'm waiting for people to respond about lecture 0, how about lecture 1, if anyone's been looking at lecture 1? Okay, so Ben, yeah, now I've heard a couple of people having trouble with core teaching access, so I am hoping to clear as much of that as possible. So I'll quickly open lecture 1 because there's been a bit of a development with assignments. Let me just find the assignments. So at the moment, I did release, oh, that's weird. Why is that not? Sometimes these numbers aren't quite right, so hit refresh and the numbers go back in their squares, not squares. What do you call these? Pizza slices. So at the moment, what's happening is the school is still in the process of approving the assignments, but I have been assured that the first one is unlikely to change. And the first one is really, once you've finished Lab 1 and Tute 1, which we'll be covering today, as long as you do everything correctly, there's a very good chance you will have Assignment 1 marks under your belt. So I'm very sorry for the delay because I did work hard getting all 4 assignments prepared in time for week 0, but I've just recently had to pull them, unfortunately. So what I'm hoping for is assignment 1. I'm hoping that you can get that completed by week 3. It should be something fairly simple. It's just worth 5% or 10% of the practical component. And then each further assignment is broken up into roughly equal sized assignments. And these 3 will basically be a progressive assignment. So you build part 1 of a website, and then the client loves you, asks you to keep going, loves you, and asks you to finish off the job. So that's basically the premise for this study period's assignment. So next week, the Tutor Lab will refer to content that's covered in the first lecture. So don't worry too much if you haven't covered the lecture or looked at lecture 1. That material we'll be covering sort of in the Tutor Lab next week. So aside from core teaching and Git issues, are there any other initial questions about the course that I can answer? Whilst I'm waiting for a reply, I'll just open up the Tute, the first Tute. And I can see everyone's logged in. That's pretty cool. Are the books must-haves or just suggested? That's a really good question. These days, I honestly think that there's so much information on the internet. Do we even need books anymore? That's a really good philosophical question. I have chosen certainly the HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript jQuery books on the basis that they are beautiful works of art and very good for, I'd say, designers who might find all the technical stuff very intimidating. So I've heard very good reviews, and I am a big fan of the books. And hopefully, John's new PHP and database programming book will be out later this year. I was really hoping it might be available for the start of this study period, but unfortunately, he's let me know that it's still, I think it's finished, but it's currently at the printers or something. But that's something I'm hoping will be available towards the end of the study period. Now, Cody's asked, where do I find the tute? Let me just pull up Canvas. Oh, don't tell me I've closed Canvas. That was embarrassing. I like to have all the windows open. Okay, so if you go to modules, once you've completed the course orientation and setting up period, setting up for success module, just come to here. And what I've got here is the WP public folder. But I do ask you to have a look at Google Drive tutorial first. And I'm getting a lot of requests from people with personal Gmail accounts. And I've got a very handy super fluffy kitten how-to guide, and I can see a couple of people are logged in. So what I do here is I just, if you get a window that looks like this, just check to see that that is your RMIT address. If it's not your RMIT address, what you're going to do is send me a personal request. So what I do is I just say how to just get out of a jam initially. Just go incognito and sign into your RMIT profile. But if you want a more permanent solution, you can set up profiles within Google Chrome. And so you can then even color. If you have a look at my windows, this is my super fluffy kitten profile. This red one is my RMIT profile. So I don't get my windows mixed up. So I think I've got about 10 requests. So if I haven't responded to your request, that's just because I don't want to give, I can't give external Gmail accounts access, unfortunately. So this is the link. So when you click on that link, it will take you to this, and then you have to click on the link again for it to open in a new window. And I'll post this link just to save you guys some time. And as long as you're logged in exclusively to your RMIT profile, you should be able to get access to this folder. So Ben's asking a question, can you get a confirmation of the order materials? Yeah, this is 100% correct what you're saying. So week one, and this happens on campus, week one's tutor and labs usually happen, some classes are before the lecture. So the first week, we spend that week just getting you set up with an account on Core Teaching, and get an account in GitHub or Bitbucket if you like to use Bitbucket. And then we have the lecture in the first week, and then the tutor and lab in the second week covers the material was covered in the week previously. And this pattern keeps going on until week 12, where we'll need to squeeze in a sort of week 12 tutor and lab and some sort of exam revision as well. Now, Timothy, you asked, is A1 related to the other assignments? Yes, it is. And good to see you again, Timothy. So Timothy knows me from BITS, Building IT Systems. So A1 is really just the getting set up with core teaching and GitHub. And once you've got everything set up, in fact, actually, does anyone think that they may have completed the first tutor lab? Like, there's a chance someone may have ripped through everything. So, Robert, so I'll just show you what I've got, and then I'll let you volunteer. So what I do is I type a student's. This is what markers do. They'll type a student's student number in here, press go, and that'll pull in the home page and the, if you like, the assignment 2 holding page. And it will also pull in the images to make sure that they're the right size and also in the correct location. So I can check if anyone's stuck on, have I finished assignment 1? You can just let me know and I'll type your student ID in here and I can pretty much tell you straight away. Oh, the HT access. Have I factored that in? I might have to modify the script to detect that as well, now that I think about it. I do have another script, but I was hoping to make this a universal one. Okay, so it sounds like I'm seeing some good progress. I'm not going to assume everyone has completed the exercises. Now, another thing that I've done, I'll just have to make this bigger, maybe 200%. So I've been looking at the skill set of everyone who's replied to the welcome to RMIT. So let me go back to here. So I've got a web programming survey, and when you fill this in, you basically tell me, first of all, if when's the most likely of, what's the best session for a chat session each day? And also, if you're unavailable, that's good to know. But I'm just collecting this information at the moment. And what I can see is, now this interests me. We've got Unix here, and we've got GitHub here. So it's interesting that quite a few people are very inexperienced with Git, I'll say. Sorry, not Git, with Unix. But you do know enough Unix to be getting along with GitHub. So that's a good sign. But I can see that a few people probably don't know what Git is, I'm guessing. Now, Samuel, there's a very good chance that's not working because you've got maybe 2 profiles open. So if you open an incognito window and log in exclusively, it should work. Now, one thing I have noticed, I opened this earlier today and this failed to open. So I had to click it to get it to open in another window. I think I've got the editing version. So I'll just pull this off screen. So if you click on that link directly, it should open, unless you've got more than one profile open, in which case Google gets very confused. I don't know why the forms, they're not on top of this. A lot of their pages now present you with a number of profiles and ask you to pick which one. But for some reason, the forms still haven't got onto that. Okay, glad to hear it's working now. So what was I waffling on about? So moving on to HTML. So seeing we've got a good sort of spread of people. Some people have had experience, but this course doesn't assume that you have any experience. And we've got some alternative technologies which might be of interest to people. So jQuery, we won't be covering it, but I'm happy to help people with it. JSON, we'll be looking at JSON, and that's really just JavaScript object notation, a way of creating objects in JavaScript. So if you've done anything like that in Java or Python or something, it's not too big a jump. Ajax, something fun for maybe advanced coders. So we've got a couple of advanced coders. PHP we will be covering in the later weeks, and this course will then jump you on to sort of web security and web frameworks, courses with that sort of content inside. Okay, let me just go back to fit and confidence levels. Good. This was a nice bar chart. Sorry, not bar chart. A nice bell curve. But I've just noticed that this section of the graph has been growing just recently. So again, we're not assuming everyone's got great skills. But it's good to know how many people are kind of in this area here. Okay, so let's have a look at the tute. So normally on campus, what we do is we get students to chat to their neighbor, or maybe talk in groups of 3 or 4. But feel free to maybe do this with, with a friend in the house or something, just to sort of flesh out some copy, because in the template that I ask you to download, I want you to fill in the gaps. And I don't need too much information, but this source is very handy for me to sort of gauge whether you're an advanced student or a beginning student. So sometimes the student will ask a question and I'm not quite sure how to answer the question, and I can jump to your homepage and see you've had 10 years of experience, and I know immediately your question is more of an advanced question, not a poorly worded beginner's question. So the devices we're using, which are RMIT machines, these are the core teaching servers, and I'm not sure if they've moved, because they're always moving things around, but this was a picture of them when I asked for pictures a couple of years ago. So they're basically just machines that sit in a server rack. They've got little labels on them, and there are 3 of them, but all 3 of them will basically refer to a file system that is common to all 3 servers. So if you are working on one server, on one machine, so let's just say you're working on Jupyter, you'll be able to see your work coming through on Saturn or Titan. So all 3 servers are mirrored. There may be a small delay whilst your files go up and come down, but essentially it's 3 machines that are feeding from a single file server. That's funny, Ben. Yeah, no, the servers are definitely kept indoors. But if you do want to break into this red brick building on Lygon Street, if anyone knows Melbourne, very well. I believe that's where they're hiding. Now, what will happen, and this is a problem, especially around assignment time. Students, maybe in web programming, but sometimes in other courses, they will bring one of these machines down just by writing badly formed scripts. And but hopefully the other two will be up long enough before that, whilst the first one is being rebooted. So that's the theory. But unfortunately, sometimes what can happen is a student will trash one of the servers and then just move on to the next one and the next one. But having three is better than just having one. So if one ever goes down, just log into another one, and usually at least one is always up. So usually, sometimes all three go down, which is very frustrating. So so in order to connect to a machine, now if you're using a Mac, and I'm using a Mac at the moment, it's very easy. There's a terminal program, so you can go into applications, and I think it's, let me just check. So if you go into applications and utilities, there's a program called terminal.app. And when you open that application, it looks like this. It might just be black and white. Now, if you're using a PC, you may have to install a program called Git Bash. But basically what it does is it gives you a command line terminal that you can connect to other machines. So I'm going to connect to SSH E54061, but you put in your student number, so S12345667. And I'll just connect to Titan because it's the shortest one. And if I trick all the students into using Titan, then Saturn and Jupiter don't get used as much, which is nice. You'll get this message here. Just say yes, it's fine. And then you have to put in your password. Now, Unix is quite clever in that it doesn't give anyone looking over your shoulder any clues how long your password is. So don't be freaked out if you don't see little asterisks. The password is being entered. So when you pop in your password, you'll get a message saying permission denied. Let me try that again. And you'll get logged in and you'll come down here. Now, of course, when you have a GUI interface, you can usually see where you are. So if you want to print the working directory, that is, where am I? Just press enter. And everyone should have a directory that looks roughly like this. So everyone's in home. Because I'm a staff member and my staff ID ends with a 1, I'm in EH1. And that's my folder. And you'll be in SH, whatever the last number of your student ID is, or sometimes SL. I don't know the rule. It's very frustrating. It makes writing scripts very hard. And then your student number should be there. Samuel's just asked how many tries before it locks you out. I think it's 3. It's been a while since I have locked myself out. And I haven't tried, but I'm guessing you could then try and log into another machine because you've locked yourself out of one machine, not the other. And even then, I think it's only a temporary lockout. So it might not be too bad. If you want to have a listing of a directory, you just type in ls, and that will list everything that's in your drive. So that's basically just a GUI folder. So I've got two folders. Well, I've got two drives, my H drive, my K drive. Just to give you a bit of advice, your H drive is the same H drive when you log into, say, My Desktop at RMIT. When you save your files to the H drive, it will appear on that drive. Don't go in there. It's there as a courtesy thing. It's very handy, so you can copy work from your H drive to core teaching. But as much as possible, I strongly recommend trying to keep the two drives separate. But it's good to know that there is a link there. Always make sure you're in home ESH123. I'll just change to the root directory and show you a directory you shouldn't be in. So this one's called RMIT home. It's very similarly named to home. Where's home? This is the one you should be in. If you ever get lost, you can just type CD and the little tilde, and that will take you to your home directory. So if you ever get lost, and if you ever want to get back to your home directory, just type CD squiggle and you'll be up there. So Matthew's found his working directory. That's very good. And I'll open, I think I'm jumping ahead here. Well, I'll open CyberDuck now. Okay, let me. Come on, CyberDuck, you can do it. Now, WinSCP is a little different to this. You'll have a split window. So I've got Titan, Saturn, and Jupiter set up. So I'll go in via Titan. So you can sort of save the accounts when you set them up. So before, let me just come back to terminal. So let me try and show you that these two things are exactly the same. So you can see a H drive, K drive. So there's my H drive, K drive. And yep, that's where everything else is. And my home directory, where is it? Home EH1 E54061. That's where it is there. And if I want to, I can go wandering. You know, I can go into some of these SH directories. So let's go into SH5. And I'm sure Matthew's, can you see everyone's number ends with a 5 here? And Matthew should be in there somewhere. Now, one very useful thing with using CyberDuck, but if I type in ls space -al, that's all listing, I actually get these permissions here as well, which is handy. And in order for web pages to be served, you will need this directory to be 701. So this is another good place to check, just to make sure that you can if your pages aren't serving, come up a directory to home or to sh5 like this, and you can find your directory here. If it's not 701, you can actually cheat. You can say where's properties or info, and you can click on permissions. Now I can't change this person's directory because I don't have privileges. But if this was my directory, I would be able to say click execute, and then that would be 701. Now I've just got Matthew, you're saying you don't have home EH1 E5401. That's my directory, so you're not allowed in that directory, unfortunately. So Matthew, what's are you brave enough to tell me your student number? Oh, wait a minute, was it? Oh, there's two Matthews, sorry. Okay, so Matthew's number ends in a 7, so let's have a look. Let's have a look in SH7. 375. Okay, it looks like it's not here. Now, if it's not here, there could be two reasons. It's because you haven't logged into core teaching yet, or it could be because it's in the SL7 directory. I think someone may have been a little bit drunk when they set this server up initially. Or maybe there were two teams. I really don't know. So 153. Oh, there you are. There you are, Matthew. So I see I can't break into your account, Matthew. So, but your directory is there. So I can see that you've got sort of default 700 permissions, which means that no one but you can access that directory. So let me go back to home. Now, it'd be really nice if I could hit a button that goes to my home. If anyone finds it, can they let me know? That would be awesome. Let me see. SH1. Oh, Trevor, wake up. Gosh, what is it? EH1. See, we've got some stuff in EL1. I genuinely don't know what the rule is. But look at this stuff, remember, he's got two accounts. That's really lucky. There I am. So I'm back in my drive. Now, this is my public HTML drive. So the permissions are 701, which means I have read, write, and execute permission. And PHP has got execute permission, which means that PHP can go inside and get something, but it doesn't know, it can't actually read, it can't tell people what's inside. So it's a bit like ordering something where you can't see the products. Something like I don't really have an analogy here. Has anyone played the game Go Fish? It's a bit like Go Fish. You can ask someone for the card, but you can't ask the person for what cards are in their hand when you've only got execute permission. And so my public HTML is a mess. So there's lots of stuff in there. Hopefully nothing too too embarrassing. And the lectures, where's lectures? So there's my WP directory and lectures there. So when you go to this page, all of this content, so that's my home directory, WP lectures, that's serving from the public HTML WP directory and lectures. So let me make that a little bit wider for you. So this URL here corresponds to this Drive Encore Teaching servers. So Alexander, you're still having trouble. Now, sometimes late enroll students, your account may be delayed getting set up. But sometimes students, your account just might not be set up for silly reasons. But I have been assured by ITS that usually when you log in for the first time, then everything gets sort of initialized. So, but if anyone's doubtful that they have an account, we can, if you want to send me your student ID, we can just have a quick look to see if it's there. So let's get back to the tute. Terminal, if you're using a Mac or Linux, I think Linux probably needs a capital L. And CyberDuck or WinSCP if you're using a PC, and WinSCP will actually give you two windows. So you'll have your local files and your remote files, which can be handy sort of dragging from one to the other. Now, I strongly recommend brackets, but I know lots of people are probably set up with Atom, I'll say that again, Atom or Visual Studio Code. These all have Git support, so you don't need to think too much about your Git actions. But you know, if you feel more hardcore, you can use your own code editor, so Notepad or Emacs or whatever, as long as there's syntax highlighting, as long as you're comfortable coding, it's more than fine. No one's going to get examined on what code editor they use. And this is just a sort of layout. So when you connect via a terminal or CyberDuck, instead of connecting via HTTP, which is what web browsers do, you're connecting to a higher directory, and then you're able to like make more than just access requests of assets in your folder. You can change and edit files, whereas people on the internet, if you like the blue side, they can only read from your files, so to speak. Ben's asked, do I have an add-in? I'm not sure if I cover that in Tute and Lab 1, or maybe I cover it in Tute 2. But yeah, I do have a recommended one for brackets, which I'll go on. Now, let me I just realized I haven't opened Git, so I will. GitHub. So there's now quite a few of you said that you have had some Git experience. So I'm just wondering, can I get a show of hands of anyone who hasn't had any Git experience? And I'll pull up Bitbucket as well. I'm getting all these students. So Alexander's saying that's me. Okay. So this is Super Fluffy Kitten. So Super Fluffy Kitten, interesting. Don't know why that's there. So Super Fluffy Kitten is my dummy student account, and it's also my account that I ask markers, so assignment markers, to log into. So I have, let me open my RMIT one. So if you like, this is my RMIT, whoa, account. And what I've got is I've got some starting files. So I've sort of set up, if you like, a template assignment that goes for assignments 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the setup is essentially assignment 1, and then assignment 2 work will go inside assignment 2, assignment 3 work will go inside assignment 3, and assignment 4 work will go inside A4. Sonia, okay, you've done bits, Sonia. That's a good sign. I'm not after any kind of, I'm not after any branches or anything more than just committing to the main. So just talking to you, Sonia, or anyone else. Have you had to do more work in other courses, like set up pull requests and all sorts of complex things? I'm really just after, I just want you to put your work somewhere safe. So if there's a disaster, like a hard drive crashes, you can just go get your code. This is the repository you will be pulling, so TR at RMIT. So what I ask you to do is to set up your own GitHub account, clone mine, and these instructions will be in the lab, and then clone that into your core teaching account, and then you'll have the files all set up, and then you can start modifying the files. And anytime you make a change, you can add those files to your repository and just push them here, and then all your code will be safe on GitHub. So Sonia's saying she should be able to manage. So I know when you're working with a team, it can get complicated because lots of you will be working on different things, and sometimes you will need to, sometimes Git gets confused as to who's got the correct version. But hopefully, if you're just working with one person, or if you like, I do offer optional paired programming. So if you want to work in the assignments 2, 3, and 4 with someone, you can sort of have the advanced Git experience where you're coding together and integrating each other's changes. But if you're working on your own, the only problem you'll have is if you're developing on one machine and you forget to push and pull, and you'll have to go back and sort of integrate your previous changes with your current changes. But I'm not sure if I'm going to talk about that this week or maybe next week, because I don't want to overload you too much with Git in the first week. So this is the kind of pattern. So you make an initial clone to your GitHub account, and then make a clone onto core teaching, and then just push updates to GitHub. So it's basically one way. So that's the first time, and then that's subsequent times. Once you get confidence, then you can work offline, which means you're not reliant on core teaching and a connection to core teaching in order to develop your assignment. You can make a copy on your laptop or your desktop, or even both, and you can then sort of push and pull from all devices and try and keep each one in sync. But I recommend don't do this until you're fully comfortable with this sort of setup where you're just working on core teaching and pushing your changes to GitHub. Now, Canvas 3, Activity 3. So Canvas is the official RMIT communications platform. Emphasis on official. That'll come in later. I've ordered the links alphabetically because otherwise I get lost. Google Drive, if you haven't got the Google Drive link, you can, when you click on that, you can then get your Google Drive embedded into Canvas. So if you ever need to go and get the teaching materials, it will actually be available from inside Canvas, which is a very handy thing to have. Your marks should appear here, but this is the important. Really, I think home is a good introduction. Announcements and discussion, they're very helpful. And the modules is really where all the teaching material is. And so I've just got everything here, but for those of you that like to have a little bit of structure and know what you're doing each week, I have prepared this sort of course progression, what you should be doing in week 0. And you can just sort of step through and just sign off those tasks as you go. But if you just want just tell me where everything is. It's basically this. All the links should be inside here. Anything else? Oh yeah, I think the syllabus. I think I've got a nice table that also, lays out the week in handy table format. So what I'd like you to do, if you can read, even though we won't be covering the lecture 1 material, it's nice at the close of the chat to maybe chat about anything in lecture 1 that you were curious about, so that you can then work on the exercises before the next chat session. Okay, so that's Canvas. And then I've got all the interactive material, and I do like this feature of Google Docs that I can basically log in, and let's just say Alexander said he was having a problem with something. I can actually chat to Alexander offline and just say, oh, how are you going? Have you managed to log into core teaching yet? It's quite handy having this live chat. And also, if I see any typos, I can make corrections without too much embarrassment as well. So as I said, so I have got this account, Super Fluffy Kitten with a Z. This guide does not need any authorization or login, so you can open that document if you're having problems with authorization. And at the completion, it will tell you how to fix everything, and also how to set up Google Drive, so you have basically a folder on your desktop that all your Google documents are inside. So you don't even need to go to Canvas in order to get your web programming materials. It will all just be pushed down to you when it's ready. So as soon as the assignments have been approved, I will release them. And if you've got the, what's it called these days? Because they renamed it for some reason. Yes, it was called Google Drive, and they've decided to call it Google Backup and Sync app instead. It's far more friendly. Yeah, so what will happen is you'll get a little drive on your computer, and all the files will come down when they're ready. So as soon as the as soon as the assignments are approved, I can then just like release them and they'll be pushed down to your computer. Okay, so that's the end of the week one tute. Any questions regarding the week one tute material? And then I'll jump onto the lab if there aren't any. Okay, so hopefully that's no questions or that you're currently typing them out. So let's go to the lab. So the lab is basically step-by-step instructions on setting up core teaching in Git. And if there is a problem with your core teaching account, we can check that out live. If you like, I can move the CyberDuck off screen so we don't reveal too much. And I can just privately tell you that things are working. So Samuel, more than happy to look you up if you want to paste your student ID into the chat. And Mitchell is asking what's the difference between a tute and a lab. On campus, what we do is we'll have a tutorial in a classroom with desks, pens and papers, but most people bring their laptops in. I find it's a much calmer environment to do teaching and presenting and walking around the class and just checking up on everyone. The other classroom we have is just with lots of computers in it and maybe a noisy air conditioner. And it's very hard to get a voice above the noise. And secondly, students can be like on Facebook and it's very hard seeing whether they're actually engaged or not. So I like to have, I like to have my teaching in a tute environment where it's more sort of collaborative, and then go to a lab where we actually get onto the computer and start doing exercises. So usually the tute comes before the lab, but obviously if you're on campus, sometimes your lab's before the tute, which is a bit annoying. But the idea is that you would be doing the tutorial in a relaxed environment and then going to a computer lab and just putting your hand up if you need assistance. Sort of like, just personal work, asking for help if you need it in the lab. So I'm just going to look for Samuel. So let me go to home directory. And I'm going to go to SH9. See if you're in that one. So 376. Nope, you're not in SH, so I'll now go to SL. See if you're in SL. Eight, 715. Okay, I can't see your student ID in either SH9 or SL9. 37687. Just double check your number. I may have reversed the digits in my head. No, definitely not in SH. Sorry, SL. So, Samuel, are you a late enrolled student, just out of interest? No, I can't see a folder in there yet. As I said, when it comes to like I did speak to the ITS and just asking, oh, how's all the setup going? I did get this response that as soon as you log in, that's usually when, for the first time, that's usually when your account is first created. So there's a little script that just waits for you to log in, and then it creates an account for you. But not always. Now, let me just open a help desk page as well. So I'm just typing help desk RMIT into Google. It's help desk RMIT. Put it in a space. Now every page. So you can be looking around, going, "Oh, where's the?" Oh man. Okay, I've just clicked on this button. Okay, is that right? I'm signing in. Okay, when the help desk is open, there's usually a little thing here that says chat, live chat or something. Oh, Samuel, you've misspelled that. You're saying CSITE. So just drop the T there. Oh, sorry, not the T, the E. The E that's after the T. So I think because it's closed now. Let me go back. See, nope. Okay, so yeah, oh, there's a new portal. Oh, great. Yeah, there's normally something here that allows you to have a live chat with an agent. If you're if you aren't getting anywhere and they say something like, "Oh, you'll need to talk to your lecturer or instructor or whatever," make sure you get their name and a job number. So that'll make it very easy for me to follow up. Otherwise, I say, "Oh, hi, someone in the help desk told a student of mine to do something," and then they say, "Oh, what was the job number?" It's just easier if I can send everything to them, and then I can usually get a quick response back. Another thing that's frustrating is if I do and try and do something for a student, they'll say, "Oh, sorry, we can't do that because it's for privacy reasons." So even silly things like, "Have you set up this student's account properly?" We can't tell you for privacy reasons. And then I say, well, can you email the student to tell them whether you have set up their account properly? So so try and get as much of it done as possible, and then send me the details, and I will then follow the job up. Cody, a 405 method not allowed. That's I'm not even sure what that is. How did you? Okay, I'm just googling that, and this is a what can I say? Basically, if something starts with a 4, it's an error code. So I know 404 page not found, but 405. Method not allowed. Are you getting that in a terminal? Are you trying to say connect to core teaching? Let me just go back to the lab. You're using WinSCP. Okay. Are you using, I think I've got a screenshot. Let me see just down here. You will need to use the SFTP protocol. That might be what's the problem, and also on port 22. So that's the secure FTP service. So that means if Russia's listening in, they'll have to work harder to work out what you're communicating. That's my best guess why you get a 405 error. Now, hopefully this is still up. So this is a really nice website that just basically takes you through the basics of Unix, and there's even some videos. And I think I'm not sure they've been re-recorded, but there's this nice kind of American Australian guy called Tim Yenkin who was recording these. I don't know if they're still his or whether they've been re-recorded. Any problems like that, feel free to send me a screenshot via email, so to trevor.reynolds@rmit.edu.au. Make sure I can see all the permissions and error messages, that there's nothing obscuring anything, and make sure you don't transmit too much information. So I don't need to see your, I don't know, let's just say social media windows open. So just make sure you focus in on the, let's just say WinSCP or terminal, etc. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I have got the link here, so that's good. So when you click on that link, oh, it looks like I'll have to update this. So I'll just update this link. RMRT's always updating stuff. Now this one, I just want to make sure this is not necessary for the assignment. And sometimes people will think this is an instructional document, but it just tells you what you can do on core teaching. So if you install a WordPress server, that's not part of this course. So stop at that point if you can. And another thing, I do get a couple of students saying, I try to log in with S12345667. Please substitute that with your student ID. Just a small number of people do that. It's funny when it happens, but I'm hoping that you don't do that. Okay, so now GitHub. So moving on to GitHub now, but feel free to ask questions. Oh, great, Cody, I'm glad you're in. So let me just, I'm just getting a little bit of information overload. What was that? Blogspot. So I'm just closing some windows that I don't need. So this is my GitHub RMIT. So that's my username. And I'm hoping that your student ID is not taken. There may be another institution that has a student ID that matches yours. But if you can grab that ID, that would be great. But if you've already got a GitHub account or a Bitbucket account set up under a different name, that is not a problem. because maybe not on this page, but somewhere, and I'll just make a mental note, somewhere I've got a link where you can register your non-standard username. So how I've got the marketing script set up is it will check to see if you've filled in this form. And if you have, it will go to that link. If not, it will default to assuming that you have used your student ID as your Git username. Now, this is one thing when you are setting up a new repository. So once you've created an account, make sure you make your repository private, and it must be called WP because, as I said, the script adapts to a non-standard username, but it is looking for a WP repository name. So I've got, I was doing it under the Super Fluffy Kittens account because my MIT one is taken. I can't clone my own repository. So whatever your username is there and your repository name there, tick private, and you should then get a new empty repository in your, oh, actually, it isn't created just yet. I think you then create repository. So yeah, then it's set up. And then what you can do is you can then clone, and we've got this quick setup, and it's right down the bottom. This is the important button where you import code from another repository. And if anything ever goes wrong, you can always import code from another repository and, you know, sort of try and start again. It's like an emergency option. Now, if you're using Bitbucket, I do have similar steps. So if you open this, I'm not sure if this is protected or not. It's basically, it's very similar. I've tried to make the two parallel, but if these instructions aren't making sense, I strongly recommend you keep both documents open and just read them side by side. If you haven't created a GitHub account before, the GitHub Education Pack does offer you quite a few perks. So you can get some free AWS hosting and all sorts of little things like that, even discounts off other products. So I strongly recommend you sign up using the Education Pack, but you should be able to get at least 5 free repositories before they approve your student account. And Samuel, this is another thing. Sometimes the GitHub will actually completed its task, but it will be showing you a page saying it's still in progress. So don't always believe GitHub. Sometimes it's a little slow to tell you. So this is the repository you're cloning. It says your old repository's cloned, but it means you know, the one that you're cloning. And then basically you'll have a carbon copy of my tr-rmit WP project, but it will be yours and yours to keep. So any modifications you make from this point onwards will be to your repository and not to mine. Fingers crossed, unless you've found a way to break in. So when you return to your Git home area, and this is just following on from what I was saying to Samuel, I'll come to your question in a moment, Matthew. When you click to your GitHub home, so when you go home, when you click on repositories, if it's finished being created, it should be listed just there. And this here, that'll be a picture of you, or it'll be a picture of a avatar or something, and you can just upload your face or something like that. A bit like this up here, you can pop it just there. And it's handy if you've got more than one profile as well. Now, as I said, send the user super fluffy kittens. For some reason, that wasn't taken on GitHub and Bitbucket. That means that I can share my semi-disposable GitHub and Bitbucket accounts with markers, and they don't mess around with my serious materials. And I've got some screenshots there. I think if you start typing in SuperFK, there shouldn't be too many of us with that using. Now, Matthew has said, just to confirm, are we creating the new repository within your GitHub? No, that's not quite accurate. You're making essentially a carbon copy of mine. So it's like this will be your repo, so either Bitbucket or GitHub, and you'll be making a clone of my repository. So this is basically a read-only repository, and then this will be a write only by you and a read only by you repository, and super fluffy kittens. And if you're working in assignments 2, 3, and 4, by them as well. So by the end of exercise 1, what you should have is basically, so this is already set up, but you should have then this set up in your GitHub environment. So Oleg is saying, instead of seeing your screen, I see your Google profile avatar. Yeah, and I suppose that's one clue. I'm not sure if I'm saying the right thing here. So if I go to my home, so I click on tr.rmit, that's my picture. So it's really clear to me that I'm in my repo. In fact, I even had a student who, I think his profile was something like ts-rmit, and I got a little bit confused. I think I actually made a clone in his repository just recently, a past student. I quickly, I sort of twigged that my photo was missing, and I then jumped back into my profile. So that was slightly embarrassing on my front. So Matthew, so just to confirm, we push changes to our GitHub repo. That's correct. So this is a clone. So let me jump to the lab. Actually, this is an import. Maybe I should change that to import. Yeah, I'm going to say initial. I'm going to modify this diagram. Just so it lines up with the language. That sounds better. Starting import. So hi Darren. So question for Trevor: are we pushing the updates to our files to Titan and GitHub, or just Titan? Step 1 is we're going to do the clone, and then you push your changes up to GitHub. But once you're more confident, then you can push and pull between all machines that you're using. Yeah, in order, actually, I'll just pull up the terminal. Hopefully it hasn't hung up on me. It's hung up on me. I'll just have to get a new one. Hang on. Oh, where's it go? All right, actually, I'll show you a little trick. I'm going to press the up arrow on my keyboard, and that's the last command I typed. So I don't need to type that every time. Now I'm going to CD P. This is just a shortcut I've got, but that puts me in my public HTML directory. And I want to go into Git repo. So I'm changing directory into Git repo, but I'm just going to type the letter G and hit tab. And the computer fills that in for me, so I don't have to do all this typing. I'm going to CD into WP and LS. And do ls-al. So this, if you like, is my my dummy student account. So I am, if you like, I have done the starting import and I've cloned into my Titan account. So this would be, if I was a student, this is what my account should look like. Or my directory should look like. Now, if I make any changes, so let's just say, and I'm going to grab CyberDuck now and change to, oh, I can hit the back button, can't I? So, so I'm going to go into Git repo. So let's just say I'm editing my index.html. I can actually edit with brackets or the code editor of my choice. And I'll just make sure there's no other work I'm doing that's going to open up here. Let me just close some of these files down. Oh my goodness, there's so many files. Oh, come on. So slow. Okay, and just try it again. One nice thing about brackets is you can open a folder. So this is my lectures. So I've been working on the lectures, just tweaking things. So if you open a folder, you've got all the files. So you can open your WP folder if you like. So I've got index here, and so I can make changes and press save, and it will update the file. So what's happening is the information is flowing through CyberDuck onto my desktop inside a temporary file. And when I press save, it will then push those changes onto Titan. So this is using WinSCP as a vector or a means of updating my code. Now, what will happen is when I've made my changes, I'll have to do git status. I type in git status just to make sure that I have actually done some work. So it says here everything seems to be clean, but if I make some modifications, press save. If I repeat that, it says index has been modified. So then I'm at a stage where the work on core teaching is fresher than the work that I have on in my GitHub repository in the cloud. So this is where I will need to push subsequent updates. So I'm now coming back and reading all these questions. So till sky falls down. So if you're using WinSCP, you can basically edit your files directly. So WinSCP gives you, if you like, a window into your teaching space. And just looking at Matthew's question now, like in the SSH, do we pull from master to get changes, or how? Yes, all I'm expecting is that you just use master. You don't need to create any branches unless you really want to. But I just recommend just sticking with just pushing to master, and it will be fine. So till skies falls down says, thank you. I've been sending files to Titan, not the repository on GitHub. Yeah, so first of all, you will need to bring these files down. Then, yeah, you can, if you're doing the simple version, you'll be making changes by, just typing this. So I'm now saving, and this now updates the version that's on CyberDuck, sorry, on core teaching. Hit refresh. Sometimes you have to do this. So you can see the date now is up to as of a minute ago. But you will have to have the command line open to do the pushing and pulling. So what you do is git add star, so add everything, and then git commit, which means, yes, I'm ready to commit my changes. And I recommend putting in a small message like, demonstrating. Something like that. And because I've got no commits, nothing to commit, then it's not going to happen. But I would say then just say git push, and that would then push the changes to GitHub. And I'll just, oops, missed. I'll just break out of that. Oh, you're saying you can't see the screen? Okay, back now. Okay, so there was a bit of a bandwidth thing. Just checking my bandwidth. I'm below my cap, so that's good. Now, Timothy, you're asking, are there any restrictions on the folder structure? I am expecting you to maintain the template, particularly the particularly A2, A3, and A4. This is where I want you to put the assignment work. And that's, if you like, assignment 1. Well, assignment 1 is everything, but I'm asking you to modify this page, not touch this file, not touch that file, actually not touch any of these files. You just need to make some modifications to index.html, and I think this is next week. You'll need to put in a .htaccess file just so that you are locking the general public out from your web page. So we don't want students seeing your work. Assignment 1 isn't too big a deal because most of the marks are about setting up and just modifying a page. It's not actually about the content that you're modifying. Um, so let me see where we're up to. So we've done the sensitive fluffy kitten an invitation, and also if you are working in a pair, please send your partner an invitation. Now I've got this the assignments separate so that if you are working with someone and you decide not to work with them in another assignment, that's fine. It's good to try these things, but you're not locked in if you have a bad partner or just a bad experience working with someone, or if work gets in the way and you can no longer work with someone. So this is this is step 2, where we're actually pulling information from your personal GitHub account onto the core teaching. So you're logging in, so hopefully this is everything you've seen. I've just got a bit of convention. Yellow is what you're typing. This is what is presented to you. And I've got some handy Unix tips here. Up arrow recalls your previous commands. Tab will auto-complete a file or directory, so you only need to type the first couple of letters. And ls-al lists all files and directories with permissions visible. So that gives you more information. So Matthew's saying, so you ran git pull in SSH, and that updated your Titan repo from the GitHub master. Yep, that sounds very good, Matthew. So you can then modify on the local clone on core teaching and then push those changes to GitHub. That's perfect. Then git pull via SSH. So git pull will pull down any changes that are on GitHub, but unless if the version on core teaching is always ahead or in sync with your GitHub account, you won't need to do any pulls. But git pulls will be required if you're using more than one device. So that is, if you like, step 2. Okay, so you're up to the local machine GitHub. Yeah, so I'll just clarify what I'm saying to Matthew. Matthew's progressed onto this stage where he's got core teaching, kind of, I'm guessing, kind of like a production server, I would say, and you're developing on your personal machine, and you're going to pull changes down here, maybe push changes up to here, and then pull changes down core teaching. And there's even an option of, dumping code via WinSCP or CyberDuck straight onto core teaching if you get really stuck. Yeah, that's good. So Matthew, obviously more advanced. You're doing this. See, I've only got single-ended arrows here, but when you really get going, you can push and pull between all devices. Now, this is one thing. When you log in, make sure you have got a public HTML directory. If you have, don't create a second one. And if you haven't got one, make sure you do create one. I've had students, they've got all their code in the wrong directory. Other students, they've got a public HTML directory inside a public HTML directory. And the nice thing with WinSCP or CyberDuck, let me just close brackets. I'll just move brackets off screen. If you need to, you've made a mistake, you can drag folders around. So it's I'll just say cancel. You can drag files and folders around just like it's a GUI interface. So if Unix is a little intimidating, you can cheat and use WinSCP or Cyberduck to do that. So once you've created public HTML directory, create a media, because it's important not to put any media in your repository. So first of all, it's consuming quota. You've only got a limited amount of free space. And also, when it comes to assignment submission time, we only want your code. We don't want your 70 megabyte movie trailers. That would just be awful. So I'll just repeat that just to be clear. So your work goes inside WP, all your code, and any media such as images and movies or audio, that all goes inside media. And we only want you to submit WP, not media, because we'll actually be marking you online as much as possible with your submission as a kind of a backup if something goes wrong. So this is the initial clone. I keep saying PWD just so you can verify you are in the right directory. So you need to be in your public HTML directory when you do the git clone. So whatever your username is and WP, otherwise you'll be cloning that person's directory. And you should then have a complete copy of your repository on your machine. Matthew is asking why is your terminal boring? There is a way of choosing color schemes. Let me if you go to preferences, you can even choose a profile. There might be one that you like, but I created my own that has yellow text and I think slightly bigger text as well. Yeah, so you can go to town and create your own profile in Terminal. As for this, that's just me cheating. I just go up here and choose a color. Now, one thing I've just changed recently, these permissions will be different, but these are your target permissions. So directory should be 7, so read, write, execute, 0, nothing, 1, 0, 0, 1 for directories, and your files, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PNG, MP3, MP4, they should be read, write, not execute, just in case there's a virus in there, and read only. Again, no execute for files. And then I've got some scripts here. So change mod. So this is change the permissions of your root directory or your home directory. So that's the tilde. Anytime you lost, you type cd space tilde and you go back to your home directory. So first of all, just change the permission of tilde and public HTML so that PHP has got access, and not just PHP, but Apache, the web server, has got access to your web assets, and also to WP. And there's an ex-student called Dallas, and that's his Discord profile. Handle. He's often giving out free advice to students. He sort of gave me this nice little script that instead of individually changing all your file permissions and directory permissions, that will find all the directories, type minus type D, and it will set them to 701. And this one works for files, only this one's 604. So this page was a lot longer because it had all the directories in it, but hopefully it's quicker now. And this doesn't need to be done now, but as long as it's done before assignment 4 is being submitted, you will need to write to this spreadsheet. I know it's got TXT, but I promise you it is a spreadsheet. Assignment 4 will be asking you to write orders to a spreadsheet, and this is the spreadsheet file. Now, when you do all of this, you should have your website available. And if you click this, this is a dummy link. And I'll just explain how this page works. You type your student. Oh my goodness, what's this? Okay, I don't know what that is. Type in your student number there, and then that means any dummy link should then work properly for you. So that's a little bit of a time saver for you. So exercise 2, that's a pretty big exercise, and hopefully most of you will be set up by next week, but I'm happy to help any stragglers over the next 7 days or so. Get set up with exercise 2. Then we've got exercise 3. Connect your core teaching account using a GUI interface. It sounds like a lot of people have got WinSCP or CyberDuck set up, so that's good to know. This is very important. Make sure it's FTP on port 22, and I recommend saving if you can, just so you don't have to set it up every time. Should get a window that looks like this. And this is just a screenshot of my dummy student Git repo folder. And the other thing is I've set the permissions to be 60644, so you can wander around, but I have a feeling I may have broken that. So let me just okay. Wrong window. Okay. I keep getting logged out of these windows. Oh no, it's still there. That's good. Yeah, so I've set up my folders to be read and execute, so you can actually go online. Hopefully you can click on this link and actually wander around. So you go to Git repo and type in WP. You should be able to see what the default looks like. So you should, this is what you should be seeing if you've done everything correctly. So Tim, yeah, I don't want you to put media into WP because you may blow your free space. You're only allowed so much, and we only really want your code to be backed up. So I recommend keeping your media somewhere else, you know, either on core teaching or just in your drive. I suppose the other thing is, you know, technically, if you find an image on the internet, there may be some complication if you include it as part of your submission because it's not your work. I'm just covering all bases here. Oh, so Joanne's having difficulty copying the images. If you right click and just say save image as, you should be able to, that should be no problem. Yeah, there's let me know if you're getting some other sort of feedback there. Oh, another thing, I've got this toggle wireframe thing. So if you click on that, that will it'll apply a style sheet that just shows that your page is constructed properly. So header, navigation, main, and footer. Oh, where's the button gone? Oh, there it is. um, so yeah, so you can sort of see in wireframe mode and say, yeah, everything's working fine, and then tick it off, and it will take away that style sheet. No, put the media on the server. So definitely have it on core teaching. It's just those images don't need to be in your Git repository. So if it's in your public HTML folder, but not your so let me do that again. So where you see Git repo, that should be public_HTML. So that directory should be not inside WP, but WP has got access to your media folder. And then you don't need to download those. You don't need to upload those images to GitHub, but they do need to be in your public_HTML directory. Yeah, here we go. For space and traffic reasons, it's not advisable to do that. And some of you may be on limited broadband, and so if you're constantly updating a movie, that'll be a problem. And the fact is, a small percentage of you will do this, and I'm just trying to reduce that number as much as possible. So exercise 4. So this is setting up on your personal machines. Please don't use Microsoft Notepad or Microsoft WordPad to code. There's plenty of free code editors that have got syntax highlighting so you can see any errors. And these are my strongly recommended ones to use. So Tim, you're asking about keeping your work in sync. Here's the thing with the media, unless, I mean, I can, you can be modifying code all the time, but I'm guessing that the media won't need to be modified. You might add some media, but when you've unless you're making Photoshop changes to the media, there's, like daily changes to your media in Photoshop, I can't see why you'd be needing to do that. But even if you do, you can still just easily just come to media. So let's just say you've got, a folder open. You can just drag it's like, pretend this is from another folder. You can just drag it into the folder and it will upload that image to your media folder. So if you do make some changes to your images, you can just drag them into an WinSCP and upload them. So I'm just comparing Notepad and CyberDuck side by side. One thing that Notepad WinSCP does, when you add a new editor, it puts it at the bottom, because why would you want that to be the one you use? So you will need to sort of drag it up or move it up. So there are these buttons saying move it up and down, but I think you can click and drag it up to the top. So we'll try the first one, and then we'll try the second one, and then try the third one. Whereas it was CyberDuck, much easier. Select the one you want to use and always use it. It's much simpler. And I'm seeing quite a few of you have got images, sort of face images. So what I'd like you to do is also upload an image. If you're a bit shy, then feel free to, like modify it so that you're recognizable but not too recognizable. But if you want to be like Tim and okay, it's just Tim. If you want to use Snoopy or some other picture, as long as it's It'll be helpful if your image matches your RMIT image, because then I'll create an association with you. So every time I see Snoopy, I know it's Timothy. I don't even need to look at the name. I know it's Tim, because we did bits together a couple of periods ago. And yeah, so if I can create a instant recognition of who you are, then trust me, things go a lot easier. I don't give the wrong student the wrong advice. So looking forward to seeing Snoopy in your webpage, Tim. And but yeah, I mean, this program came out a few years ago. I don't know if it's out of flavor at the moment, but it does create pretty good kind of watercolor pictures that look good. And I've got some more resources. One thing I strongly recommend. So I've got some tutorials here. These are very handy. If anyone is trying, I don't know if this is still going, but when you were coding, the amount of advice that was presented was just amazing. And I was quite jealous. I was even thinking about learning Mandarin just so I could use this code editor. So next week, we'll be looking at installing a web server on your local machine if you haven't done so already. Lucid chart, this is good for diagrams, but this is source tree. And also, have I got, I think I've got Git Kraken somewhere else. Anyone did Intro to IT with Anthony last period? Let me just, whilst I'm waiting for you to reply, I'll just open source tree. So I've just got to update request to install updates and just closing that. I'll try that again. Okay, so this is source tree. Oh, this is good. So if you do get lost and you're a little bit unsure of what's going on in your Git repository, this is source tree, but let me just check if... Okay, so Robert, Samuel, and Sonia. I know Anthony's a very big fan of Git Kraken, which is pretty good. But this is Atlassian, so Atlassian, Bitbucket, Trello, the company that makes all that software, also makes this free program called Source Tree. Git has also got GitHub Desktop or something, or Git Desktop, and it presents these in kind of a more graphical layout. And if you're using Bitbucket, you get this as well in Bitbucket, which you don't get in GitHub, unfortunately. So at the moment, I did some changes on the lectures. So these lectures, I've got some updates, and the trouble is I'll do updates on my desktop, on my laptop, on Core Teaching, if I'm forgotten my laptop. And the other day, I realized I had some changes on Core Teaching that were quite old. So the good thing is this is really handy, because I've just remembered I've forgotten to update my desktop version. And this is an alternative way of doing all that git pulling and pushing. So I'm going to pull the commits from GitHub. And that's my message, stray commits, because I couldn't remember what I'd done. And hopefully my thing is up to date. So I've now pulled code that I forgot to pull, and now I'm going to push. Oh, wait a minute. Let me just check commit. Oh, I've got nothing to commit. That's good. Sometimes there'll be changes on my desktop that I've forgotten to push. So what happened is I'll pull them and then integrate them and then push. And then everything will be fine. And that's, trust me, that's sometimes a lot easier to work out than using the command line. And if I've got brackets still open, because I did want to cover this just really quickly, there is a plugin that usually has a tooltip, but not today. I'll turn that off. Okay, I'll turn that on. So whenever you make a change, so I'll just make a change now and save. Okay, I thought that would change, but obviously not today. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm editing a file that's not on this machine. So you won't get, this won't work if you're editing a file directly on Core Teaching. It only works if you're editing a project that you've set up on your machine. So this is the lectures. So if I make some changes here and save, then it will detect that I've modified a file. I just tick this box to say commit all, and it will then, I can then stage them and then push and pull. But this is in next week's tute, so I don't want to cover too much because I want to cover this next week. So if I save that again, put it back the way it was, it detects that there's been no changes. So I put my code back to the way it was. And if you go to the extension manager, that's where you install all the different plugins. And I've got a link to that plugin in next week's tutorial. So that's pretty much today's tute and lab. Also, I think probably everyone knows this, but just in case you don't, if you click on this, that is like having a private personal network. Sorry, private personal network. Yeah, that's right. That's what VPN is. It private? Yeah. Sorry, virtual private network, not personal. But that will give you a desktop into RMIT's machine. So it's just like you're in a lab at RMIT. You're kind of inside the RMIT workspace. So you can use Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever software you want to use. Just be aware it's a little bit slow because it's doing extra work, but it's if you're ever in a library or on a friend's computer, this link, you can basically dial into another machine that has everything that you need. So wow, that was pretty good timing, 21:25. So we've got 5 minutes left of this chat, so I'll open up questions to you guys. So any questions about today? Okay, so till sky falls down. So yeah, when you're making changes, so I'll just pull up diagrams again. So this is, if you like, this is the beginner's stage. So what happens is you're making changes on core teaching. You don't have a copy, you haven't cloned a workspace onto your laptop or desktop, just assuming you're at this stage. When you make changes, you have to follow. Let me scroll up. So that's the clone. That's the permissions. Oh, actually, I do cover this next week because I didn't want to overload you too much in the first week. I'll just show you a little bit. I think I may have jumped ahead. So let me just check that. So protection. Yeah, this is if you like exercise 2, updating your Git repo from core teaching. So if you like in the first week, I really just want you to clone and have a copy and maybe make some modifications. But this is where you're configuring core teaching with your username and email. And this is where you start pushing the changes up. Yeah, so don't worry too much about pushing changes back in week 1. We will be covering this in more detail in week 2. And also, I also get you to configure. Oh, I'll say that again. I give you the option to configure your repo so that you don't have to type your username and password in every time. So there's a small security risk. Someone could push and pull changes without using your password, but if typing your password over and over again is annoying you, then you just run this command, and then you only have to enter it one time. Yeah, so yeah, in my head, I wasn't sure whether I did lose track that I wanted to put this off until next week. So apologies if I'm confusing you too much about pushing back to GitHub. No problem. No, it's me that should be apologizing. I was not keeping track of what I wanted to teach in week 1. I'll just close some windows. File permissions are local to the core teaching machine. So yeah, file permissions are very important on core teaching because you want to have some access. You want to be able to show that you can put files onto the web, but also there's this added complication, and I think I explain it next week. RMIT doesn't like you putting your work on the internet for others to see. So as I said, assignment 1's not such a big deal. As long as HT access is set up in time for your assignment 2 work, then everything is going to be okay. So just a quick recap. Assignment 1, I promise you, unless some disaster befalls us, really when you complete assignment 1 and 2, when you complete labs 1 and 2 and tutes 1 and 2, that should be assignment 1 done. And I wonder if I guess I can go into assignments and just give you I can't show you the rubric, so I'll just make it a little bit smaller. But if you do need an extension, I've got a link to a form here, so this will be activated very soon. If you need more time, just apply for an extension. I'm allowed to give you up to 7 days. So if you just need the weekend, just go next. I think I explained this in the first recording. So don't be shy about asking for extensions. I just want to make that 100% clear. Okay, so I'm guessing no more questions, so I will close tonight's chat and just check the discussion, see if anyone's asked more questions. Oh, two more introductions. That's good. Everything looks good. So I'll say goodbye to everyone and see you in the discussion boards. And and also Discord, if anyone has discovered Discord yet. This is like the unofficial chat room. So if you want to say things that aren't suitable for RMIT, that's where you should say things. It's not an RMIT communications thing. But also, please don't rely on Discord to provide you with any useful information. If useful information appears there, that's great. But it is designed to be the unofficial chat room, kind of like a Facebook that I'm invited to chat room. And if you need me and I'm around, I've even got a little voice channel. So if I'm here and you need to chat to me, I can turn this on as well. Okay, so as I said, I will stop the broadcast now and I'll waffle on a little bit. I'm not sure if I can put any of those like YouTube next video things up if it's a private video. Yeah, so I probably won't be able to do that. So I'll just stop talking and turn off the broadcast and see you next time.